Imagine this, it's 1954. The Arctic Circle looms ahead, with its powerful magnetic forces threatening to disrupt every mechanical instrument on board. As Scandinavian Airlines pilots chart a new course over the top of the world, they need something that won't falter under the pressure of this hostile environment. Something reliable, something revolutionary. What they need is a watch that can fend off the invisible forces that could threaten to send them off course. This is where our story begins. Not in the polished showrooms in Geneva, but the frigid skies above the North Pole, where necessity birthed a timepiece that would forever change horological history. This is Mace for the Watch Game. Today I'm wearing my white dial Omega Seamaster on a Milanese bracelet, and I hope you enjoy this video talking about the history of the Polarouter. The post-World War II era saw a dramatic increase in commercial aviation, the likes of which we've never seen before. Travelers dressed in their finest suits and their elegant dresses, and they embarked on journeys their parents could only dream of. But behind this glamour, airlines faced fierce competition, with every minute of delay cutting into their bottom line. Scandinavian Airlines systems had a bold plan. Why fly traditional routes when crossing over the Arctic Circle connected Europe and North America much more efficiently? They called this the Polar Route, and it was a really bold and creative idea, but it had one significant problem. The mechanical fields near the North Pole wreaked havoc on mechanical devices and therefore mechanical watches. For pilots who relied on precise timekeeping for scheduling and navigation, this wasn't just a little problem, this was potentially catastrophic. SAS needed a solution, and they needed it fast. Make no mistake about it, this is a video about the history of the Polarouter, but this story intersects with the origin story of the most famous modern watch designer. In a way, you could say that this video is about the birth of two legends. When it came time to source a watch, SAS put out a request for proposals. Universal Genève won the bid. UG, a respected Swiss watchmaker, and they were tasked with building a watch that would withstand these magnetic forces. The company made a curious choice. Rather than turning to an industry veteran, they turned to a 23-year-old jewelry designer, and they asked him to design this new watch for SAS. And that 23-year-old was Gerald Genta. It would be like asking a high school student to design the next Ferrari. And of course, this was a gamble. But this gamble paid off beyond anyone's wildest imagination. While Genta had designed jewelry in the past, this was his first ever watch design. You could imagine that the pressure he faced was immense. And Genta had to strike a balance between finding something that would be elegant enough to fit in with the rest of Universal Genève's catalog and having that functional ability to withstand the magnetic forces of the Arctic Circle. He didn't just succeed, he created a masterpiece. When first released to airline crews and then to the public in 1954, the name of the watch was Polarouter, with a direct reference to its Arctic origins. Its simple yet sophisticated design featured a black dial with a silvery rim and impeccable proportions that seemed to whisper rather than shout. A year later, due to trademark concerns, Universal Genève changed name from Polarouter to Polarouter, changing the E to an A. This small spelling change did nothing to diminish its growing reputation. For Gerald Genta, this was just the beginning. The Polarouter would serve as the foundation for a career that would see him go on to create the Omega Constellation, the Audemars Piguet Royal Oak, and the IWC Ingenieur, watches that would define luxury horology for the rest of the 20th century. Like any great design, the Polarouter did not remain static. It evolved, adapted over its production run. In the early years from 1955 to 1960, we saw the classic Polarouter establish itself with a clean dial, elegant Dauphine hands, and the trapezoidal date window. So for those people who were drawn to aviation themes, the Polarouter Jet offered a crosshair dial with nods to aircraft instrumentation. So adventurers could choose the Polarouter Sub. It had a rotating bezel and proved that Universal Genève could compete in the emerging dive watch market. There were lots of variations with the Polarouter from there, but the next important horological advancement was the microtor. The microtor era began in 1958. This is when Universal Genève introduced their groundbreaking 215 in-house movement. This was a technical marvel that allowed for a slimmer profile while still maintaining excellent accuracy. The Polarouter Genève, prominently displaying Genève on the dial, became its flagship model. It also had a variant with a day date that travelers craved. During the 1960s, the Polarouter 3 emerged, with a larger case and more modern aesthetics. Like every other watch brand, they were trying to keep pace with the changing tastes of their consumer, while still trying to maintain their distinctive DNA. But even legends aren't immune to history's turning tides. The 1970s brought the Quartz crisis, a technological tidal wave that would go on to devastate Swiss watchmaking. As inexpensive battery-powered devices flooded the market, Swiss watchmakers, including Universal Genève, struggled to adapt. Production of the Polarouter declined sharply, and its production basically ceased to exist in the early 1970s. The company that had once stood among the great Swiss watchmakers now began a slow decline. For decades, the Polarouter primarily existed only in the collection of knowledgeable enthusiasts, a hidden gem in the vintage market. It was recognized by a handful of collectors who understood and appreciated its aesthetic and its importance horologically. Over the last 10 years, Universal Genève has seen a renaissance among vintage watch collectors, and this includes both the tri-compacts and, of course, the Polarouter. Now watch collectors understand the importance of the Polarouter, not just seeing it as an important piece of horology in the 1950s, but also the beginning of Gerald Genta's storied career. And now with Breitling acquiring Universal Genève and announcing the reissue of the Polarouter in 2026, vintage models have gone up dramatically over the last 6 months. Just 2 to 3 years ago, you could find the Polarouter in the $2,000 to $3,000 range in good condition. But now that same watch, if available, would be around $4,000 to $5,000, and some models going up to $6,000 or $7,000, depending on condition. The Universal Genève Polerouter represents way more than just a solution to a technical problem. It embodies a pivotal moment when air travel was transforming the world, when a young watchmaker was revealing his genius for the first time, and when form and function achieved perfect harmony. Born from the challenges of crossing the Arctic Circle, the Polarouter became a bridge between watchmaking eras. It connected the traditional craftsmanship of mid-century Switzerland with modern watchmaking techniques that would define luxury watches for the 20th century. For collectors, historians, and anyone who appreciates the art of timekeeping, the Polarouter remains what it has always been. A remarkable testament to human ingenuity when necessity met opportunity in the frozen skies above the North Pole. I'm Mace, and this is The Watch Game, and if you like this video, give us a like and subscribe and all that good stuff, and I'll catch you in the next video. Take care.